I'm a woman who knows how to change. To change means to become someone different. And change is always the product of learning. To learn how to change, you need to learn how to learn. And I teach the art of learning. Before I started teaching others, I had to teach myself a lot of skills. Change becomes the product of learning not when you force yourself to change, and not when change becomes something you must do because your pain has become so big and so unbearable that you have to do something. Learning always results in change when you voluntarily decide to go through your transformations, when you choose to go there instead of being pushed to go there. I teach the art of learning non-trivial skills. And I want to give you a few examples because I had to teach myself quite a few. There are skills that are pretty straightforward and simple. I don't want to diminish anyone's results. I don't want to diminish any skills, but if I give you an example, this is what it looks like. I teach native-like fluency. This is the level at which you can speak in another language effortlessly and spontaneously. I help people, especially advanced language learners, develop spontaneous speaking skills in English. This is not the level at which it's enough to know a certain number of words or a certain number of grammar rules. This is the level at which it's important that you know who you want to become. It's the process of becoming someone who can speak a foreign language effortlessly. Because no one I know at least, and this is not something I was taught, unfortunately, and now I see that it's not something that can be taught in a university or in an academic environment. It's impossible to teach in an academic environment. How do you become someone who speaks another language effortlessly and spontaneously? This is a non-trivial skill because it requires a shift in behavior, and very often a dramatic shift. If you want to learn a foreign language, the process can be pretty straightforward. You move from level A to level B to level C, then you prepare for an exam, then you pass an exam, and you're done. You get a language certificate and you're done, right? A lot of people consider themselves advanced language learners because they scored 6, 7, 8, or even 9 on their IELTS exams. But we both know very well that a language certificate is not a proof of something that's permanent. Your employer will ask for a new language certificate every 2 years because if you don't practice a skill, you don't have it anymore. And that's the whole problem. This is the big problem with learning most skills, most hard skills, and even most soft skills. People finish a course, they get a certificate, they get a degree, they pass an exam, and they stop practicing. And they call themselves someone who has a degree, or someone who has a certificate, or someone who's proficient. But as soon as you stop practicing, your certificates don't matter because you become the person who doesn't practice anymore. And if we speak the language of becoming someone different, because the real question of learning is not what will I learn or how much will I learn. The real question is who will I become? So if you became the person who stopped practicing, you don't have the skill anymore. And learning non-trivial skills requires this level of honesty with yourself. Have I become someone who stopped practicing? Okay, does it mean that I have the skill? Maybe you do have the skill. Maybe you still have it. But the quality of the skill will change. So who do you want to become? That's a big question. Someone who has a certificate or someone who has a skill. Every time we're talking about non-trivial skills, we talk about developing mastery, which means going beyond certificates, going beyond average or known or socially accepted or traditional. Because there are a lot of people who are technically proficient, but there are not a lot of people who are masterful. Let me give you an example. Think of someone who can play a musical instrument very well. They can be technically proficient, and if you look at them play a musical instrument, you can tell that they're really good. And I'll think of someone who plays the same musical instrument so well that when they play, you weep. You can't help crying. They touch something in you that you can't explain. If we film both of them and if we look at how they play, from the perspective of an outside observer, they look the same. They perform the same movements, but the impact is dramatically different. Yes, you can become someone technically proficient and you might have a certificate to prove it. Or you can become someone who goes deeper, someone who practices differently after they have achieved this level of technical proficiency. It's a very different level. It's the level beyond words. It's so difficult to explain it in words, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. Imagine someone who knows enough words. Maybe you can relate. I used to be this person too. I knew a lot of words, and I would say all the words I knew, and I would hide my true self behind the words. Yes, somebody who speaks a foreign language very well, somebody who has a C1 or even a C2 certificate, can explain very smart ideas with very smart words. But all you hear is words. You don't hear anything else. You don't see their personality behind the words. You're somehow annoyed by their words. You can't connect with their words. Have you experienced this before? And these people who give you a lot of words, they often give you a job to make sense of these words and to make sense of what they're experiencing, to make sense of what they're going through emotionally. They give you a job to understand them, and they keep apologizing for their English skills. Maybe you're this person too, because I definitely used to be that person. Oh man, I'm sorry, my English is not good enough. I can't really explain it. And you keep repeating this mantra for 7, 8, 10, 15 years. It's such a perfect excuse for not going deeper, for not going further, because you can always say, oh, English is not my first language. So you must understand that it's hard for me. So I'm giving you this job to understand what I'm going through. Try to figure this out. You speak English better, so help me. And then what must be a desire to learn, what must be an opportunity to learn from another person who is open and who is readily giving you everything you need to learn from them, if you truly listen, it becomes a demand. You have to understand me, because you know that my English skills are not that great. And I'm not saying that we should not attempt to speak, or we should feel bad for speaking the language badly. No, we need to speak badly in order to learn to speak better. I'm talking about situations where people get stuck at this level and they get comfortable at this level, because it's always easier to demand more understanding than to try to understand others yourself. And it's especially difficult to do the work to understand yourself. Why am I doing this? Why am I not doing more work? Why am I not progressing? Why am I stuck at this level? To become someone who says the words that inspire people, who can say the words without thinking too much about the words, someone who can be effortless and spontaneous in their expression, someone who can say the words to connect other people. If you're talking to a group, if you're talking to your audience, especially if you sell in English, it's a different level. different from just saying the words that you think are correct because you translated them carefully in your head or even on paper before you said them. Or maybe your speaking coach wrote a script for you that you are reading right now. I'm not reading a script right now. I'm not reading off the teleprompter. I'm just talking to you. And my job is to make sure that people know that this level of mastery exists and there is a system to get there. I help people get to that level. Across the bridge of a lot of doubt, across the bridge that consists of a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself. And this bridge is truly transformational. Because at this point and at this level, it's not enough to learn the language. You have to change your approach to learning. And it's not about learning more about the language, it's about learning more about yourself. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I choose to hide behind my words? Why do I choose not to say the words that can help people understand what I mean? At this level, the goal is not to say the right words and be satisfied. I said the right words, it's your job to understand them. Oh, you don't understand them? What's wrong with you? English is your first language. I said everything correctly. What else do you want from me? At this level, the goal or the desired outcome is better relationships. So our goal when we say anything is to connect with other people. And every time you speak, you're either creating this connection or you're not. So think about the second musician who can play music so well that you weep. And now think of a person who can speak in such a way that they touch something in you and they are able to get to something in you that you were not able to access yourself. And when they speak to you, you're able to connect not only with their words, but also with what the words mean and with something in yourself. This creates true understanding and true connection. Basically, this improves human relationships, and that's the goal. And that's why it's a non-trivial skill. There's no linear process. You can never get there by going from Unit 1 to Unit 25 in a chronological order. You'll never get there if you do it this way. No one will give you a curriculum to learn a non-trivial skill. And everybody who says that they will or they can give you a specific curriculum is lying, because there's no science on you. There's no textbook on you. Learning a non-trivial skill is not as simple as mastering Unit 1, then answering a couple of questions and taking an exam and then moving on to Unit 2. You will find that after Unit 1 you feel stuck, or you need a break, or you feel such a huge resistance to go to Unit 2 that you don't really know what to do about it. Learning non-trivial skills always means going through a lot of resistance, facing your resistance, understanding your resistance, and understanding how you can become someone who can deal with your own resistance. And you can deal with it only when you understand it. Learning non-trivial skill requires developing a lot of meta-learning skills. I teach metacognition as well. Well, I can't say that I teach metacognition, but I teach the practical application of metacognitive skills to learning non-trivial skills, including learning foreign languages. And these skills will transform you because you're learning to move beyond what you thought was possible. When I say you will change, I'm not saying that you will need to change who you are, because the idea is painful for a lot of people because they don't want to change and they don't want to change who they are. You don't have to change who you are. When I say you will change, I mean that you will become someone you know you're meant to become. I'm talking about this kind of change. The change you're internally ready for and you're actually yearning, but you don't know how to get there. And all the traditional methods will not take you there, and you know that they won't. And you know that this online course is going to be just like the other online course, that this YouTube video is for beginners, just like any other YouTube video. This work is so much deeper. You go to deeper layers and levels where nothing is crystal clear, to be honest. Because everything is crystal clear only when you stand knee deep in water and you can see everything. It's transparent, it's clear, it's obvious. The moment you get a little bit deeper, the water gets darker and you don't really know where you're going, but you know you have to keep going. And it's important to have a mentor, a teacher, a guide, and a community of people who have mastered the skill or who are practicing the same skill together with you. This is a surefire way to move faster. I mentioned earlier that the result of learning a non-trivial skill will be a shift in behavior. Thus, learning a non-trivial skill requires paying a lot of attention to your own behavior, identifying your own patterns, analyzing which patterns need to go, which patterns need to stay, and changing those patterns that need to change. Learning a non-trivial skill does not require any special equipment, any special program. It doesn't always require hiring an expensive coach. I'm sitting in a room here where I learned to draw, where I keep doing my workouts, where I lift, where I practice my handstand, where I do my yoga. I do all of them in one room. I don't go to the gym anymore. I don't go to a drawing studio. I learn from my laptop. This is also the room where I film because I had to learn how to film. The point I'm trying to make is that a lot of beginners start with buying expensive equipment. Let's say anybody who wants to pick up running ends up buying expensive running gear before they even try to run a mile or two. They think that running gear is essential and without it they won't be able to try. I can understand this, but it's not always true. I've always been interested in teaching myself different skills. I draw with soft pastels. I have pastel pencils here. I have more of the soft pastel chalks over there. But it's always been interesting for me to take a skill and to see how long it's going to take me from a complete beginner to a very good level. I think this is pretty good, for someone who's been drawing for only 2 years. These are the things that I'm actually proud of. These are my drawings. And I would say this is a non-trivial skill. However, I can't say that I've achieved any level of mastery yet because I'm learning with a teacher and my teacher is 1,000 times more masterful than I am because I'm using my teacher's tutorials to draw this, but I wouldn't be able to look at a bird, come home and, draw the same thing that I saw. I'm not at that level yet. I'm still learning. But I personally need at least 1.5 years to master a skill. From the level where I know nothing and I don't even have pencils to the level where I can do it very well. And I can even be competitive. Even though I'm not interested in being competitive with other people at all. It took me 1.5 years to change the way my body moves. For example, it took me 8 months to learn to do pistol squats. It took me about a year, a bit less than a year to do a handstand, and I'm still learning to hold a handstand for longer than 10 seconds. There's still a lot of work for me to do. What's important for me is that I do not stop practicing because I don't see the point in stopping. As soon as I stop practicing, I stop being the person who practices. I had to learn how to eat differently because I used to have really bad skin. Acne, breakouts, dry skin. I used to have really bad skin. And everyone would tell me that I inherited it from my father and nothing could be done with that. But I taught myself to eat differently, to cook and bake without sugar, without white flour, without all the harmful ingredients. I taught myself to make better choices when it comes to food. I taught myself what I need to do to have clear skin. I cured my own skin. I am a little bit taller than I used to be because I taught myself how to move differently, how to work out differently. I learned to perform certain exercises to correct my spine and to become taller. I think my biggest achievement so far is that I learned to express myself differently in any language, and that so many of my relationships with people and with myself improved. All this work is helping me be more authentic, and being authentic is my top value. And this is what I want for you as well. I think our goal is to become more of who we are